Hi, you guys. Welcome back. And of course, if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy, and in this video, I'm going to tell you about the famous conjoined twins, the Hilton Sisters. So stay tuned. A lot of you might have already seen the season of American Horror Story that was titled Freak Show. And in that season of American Horror Story, Sarah Paulson actually plays the conjoined twins that were picked up by a sideshow and basically put on display for the world to see due to the fact that they are conjoined twins. But in the real life story of these conjoined twins, who were famous in the vaudeville shows, their names are Daisy and Violet Hilton. Daisy and Violet's story made it into this year's Halloween Spooktacular, mostly because I feel as though the way that they had been treated for most of their lives was actually creepy. So I just kind of want to introduce you to the Hilton Sisters and just tell you the story of their lives. So I would like to start at the very beginning of the twins' life. So their mother was named Kate Skinner. She was an unmarried barmaid. Kate Skinner actually worked for someone by the name of Mary Hilton. Her employer, Mary Hilton, actually even helped in the childbirth of Daisy and Violet. And so when the twins were born, Kate actually saw them being conjoined as a punishment from God for all of her sins. And so she didn't really want to raise these girls. Mary Hilton, on the other hand, saw opportunity in these girls. And so Mary Hilton purchased the twins from Kate Skinner and then took them under her care from then on. So Mary Hilton actually was exploiting these children since the very beginning of their lives. So it began at the bars that she had worked for, and they lived up above a bar. It was actually quite sad because even at a very young age, Mary Hilton was allowing people to pay to come upstairs just to take a look at these girls' bodies and how they're conjoined. So ever since they were very small, young children, these girls had random strangers constantly looking up their dress or feeling them around their hips and buttocks. And obviously it was just very uncomfortable for these twins, I'm sure, as they were growing up in Mary Hilton's care. Now, she also started their show business life very early on. So the Hilton Sisters toured Britain first in 1911 at the young age of only 3 years old. Then Mary Hilton took them on a tour through Germany and then to Australia. And then in 1916, they came over to the United States. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out about these girls is that they never really had time to enjoy their childhood. They were constantly on tour and doing shows, basically just showing off their strange condition to the people of the world. And not only that, but Mary Hilton had them practicing instruments, dancing, they had singing lessons. Basically, she wanted these girls to be in the public spotlight in any way possible. So they were constantly training for their next talent show, so to speak. They didn't live in the United States for too long before their caretaker, Mary Hilton, actually died in Birmingham, Alabama. And so, once Mary Hilton had passed away, her daughter, Edith Meyer, and her husband, Meyer Myers, went ahead and took over management of the twins. And so they lived in San Antonio, Texas, with the Myers. After Edith and Meyer Myers took over management of the Hilton Sisters, they were mostly held captive. So the girls were beaten if they didn't do as the Myers wanted them to do. And as I stated, they were usually just held captive, meaning that they weren't able to go out and just be young ladies in the world. They weren't able to make their own decisions, and they weren't able to go make their own friends. Now, at the height of their fame, they might have been bringing home $5,000 per week, which is a huge amount in the early 1900s. These twins never actually saw a penny of it. All of the money that they had earned went to their managers, the Myers. It was actually Daisy and Violet's friend, Harry Houdini, who talked these girls into suing the Myers. And this was when they were at the age of 23. And so in 1931, the sisters sued the managers, the Myers, and gained freedom from their contract. And they were also awarded $100,000, basically in damages. Now, that's when they went into vaudeville as the Hilton Sisters. And that's when Daisy dyed her hair blonde and Violet left her hair brunette. And so they were just kind of trying to break free a little bit and make new identities for themselves as separate people living as one person. Now, Daisy and Violet did not only dye their hair differently after they were freed from the Myers, but they also began to shop around for the latest fashions. They began to wear different outfits. So rather than the two of them wearing the same outfit, they would each wear something different. But on top of that, they splurged on so many things. They began smoking, drinking, and just partying the nights away. I feel like they were caged up for so long that finally when they had freedom, they went a little buck wild, if you know what I mean. And so they really enjoyed the good life while they were working the vaudeville shows because they were making a ton of money, they were gaining a ton of fame, and they even began to, date around with men and things like that. And Violet even began dating a musician by the name of Maurice Lambert, and they even became engaged and tried to be married in 21 different states, and it was failed in every state due to the fact that Violet was conjoined with her sister Daisy. And so therefore no one would actually approve the marriage between Maurice Lambert and Violet Hilton. So because of that, it just caused a lot of tension between the two. And of course, they ended up breaking up over it because their relationship just couldn't go any further anymore. Unfortunately, the girls' lifestyle was a little hard to keep up with after the fame of the vaudeville shows was fading, and therefore, after squandering so much of their fortune on just frivolous things, it was actually very hard for the Hilton sisters to then stay afloat after their fame had begun to fade. Now, the Hilton sisters also did have somewhat of a movie career as well, because in 1932, they starred in the movie Freaks. And then later on in their career, in 1952, they starred in the movie called Chained for Life. And that movie was actually kind of loosely related to their life story as well. By the time they had created their second movie, Chained for Life, in 1952, the Hilton Sisters' popularity and fame was already beginning to fade. And the Hiltons' last public appearance was at a drive-in in 1961 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Their tour manager actually abandoned them there in North Carolina, and they had no money and no means of transportation to take them back home. And they also had no income whatsoever. So they were then forced to take a job at a local grocery store, and they actually worked at this grocery store for the rest of their lives. So from 1961 until their death, the Hilton Sisters lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and simply worked at a grocery store. Now, on January 4th of 1969, the Hilton Sisters failed to report to work at the grocery store in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so their boss actually called the police, who went over to check on the twins. And that is when it was revealed that they had died of the flu. First, Daisy had died, and from the looks of it, it seemed as though Violet still lived about 2 to 4 days longer before she died as well. What do you guys think about this story of the Hilton Sisters? I do believe that they had a life full of fun and connecting with people and things like that later on. They had a very tragic beginning with a mother who didn't want them, just followed by people who constantly took advantage of them in their situation. But, when they finally broke free from those people, it seemed like they didn't know what else to do but to try to offer their talents to the world, even after the world was just kind of over it and didn't really care what the Hilton Sisters had to offer anymore. I find it quite strange that these Hilton Sisters, who are conjoined twins and who were at one time quite famous, ended up working at a grocery store for the last 8 years of their lives. So it's rather strange, but I honestly feel like it is possible that the last part of their lives where they worked at the grocery store, it was probably the most normal life that they lived. Because they got up and went to work, they lived together in their own home, and they were in charge of themselves. No one else was taking advantage of them, or, no one else was basically looking at them as though they were freaks. Because now they finally were able to just live out their lives like normal people. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button and share this out with your friends on social media. And of course, if you're a viewer but not yet a subscriber, I would love for you to subscribe today. So please feel free to click that subscribe button right under this video. And once you've subscribed, be sure to click that bell and you can be notified each and every time that I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.